Welcome to another episode of Leading Lessons Podcast. It's the only podcast that's going to allow us to learn from the successes and struggles of other people. We've all heard that struggle is the best way to learn, is the best way to grow as an individual. Sometimes that's painful. It's not great to, go through struggles and have to overcome obstacles and fail. And we've all had to fail once in a while in our lives. And the best part about this is we're going to be able to talk to somebody that's not only seen success, but also through success has had to come across some obstacles and struggles himself. And, this week I have the opportunity to bring on one of my personal mentors that's helped me a lot because he's not only been able to show me the way because of theory, he's actually walked the walk himself. This guest was actually born and raised in Indiana, and he's always had a dream to make a difference for others and for his family and everybody along the way. He was once a collegiate baseball player, and then he turned his life into a sales professional. And from there, he dedicated his life to leadership, both in the sales world as well as as a philanthropist by serving as the chairman of the Make-A-Wish Foundation here in North Carolina. He's also an author of the Success Hurricane, How to Achieve Success at a Category 5 level. And he's a multifaceted entrepreneur who's had experience both founding and scaling multi-million dollar businesses and companies. So this week, I have the pleasure of welcoming Mr. Ben Brookhart to the show. Thanks for joining us to the conversation this week, Ben.
Yeah, absolutely, Justin. Excited to be here with you.
Thanks, Ben. So, when we think about success, we've all had our ideas of that come into our mind, but we don't always act upon it. And you have the experience of actually taking an idea and running with it. Can you tell us a little bit about kind of your background and what that kind of looked like for you?
Yeah, Justin. So as you mentioned, I'm from Indiana. Go Hoosiers! Finally, actually showed up for a football team, so that was fun. Our basketball team's not doing too well, but I got hurt in college. My goal was actually to get drafted and play in the MLB. And when I got hurt, I realized that dream probably wasn't going to happen and I need to get focused on a career. And so I always wanted to live in the Carolinas. I knew one person who lived in Charlotte. That was my cousin. I called him up and I said, Clint, I'd love to come down for the summer, get a job. I just don't have a lot of money. Can I crash at your house? And he said, look, I'll give you 90 days. You crash on the couch. And then you're out after that. You got to support yourself. I said, deal, I'll do it. I came down, Justin, and man, I was blessed to find an opportunity that absolutely changed my life. And that was in the home security business. I started in 1997, June of 1997, knocking on doors, didn't know anybody. Never had really sold anything in my career, but I believed in the product and I had a great mentor that was teaching me and guiding me along the way. And I went out in my first 6 months and I made $98,000 from June until December. And I turned 21 that year. It was like, it changed my life forever. But what I took from that is I took a risk. I didn't have anything to lose. My mom had given me $1,000 at the time. I drove my 5-speed Geostorm to Charlotte and I took a risk and it paid off for me because I put in the work. And so many people, they want the prize, but they're not willing to put in the effort. They want the promise, but they're not willing to go through the process. And you have to be able to, put in the hard work to be able to have success. And you got to make sure you're around right people because you could be in the right industry, but if you're not around the right people, that can affect the outcome. So, you got to evaluate all of those things. But that was the first time that I took a risk. And I've never been afraid to take a risk ever since then. And, I've just recently taken the biggest risk of my entire life in a new business. So, we can talk a little bit more about that later on. But yeah, so that was the first risk and it paid off because of I was willing to go all in and I had great people around me.
That's phenomenal. And congratulations on the new business. We're definitely going to talk a little bit more about that in just a little while. And I'm sure there's a lot of people wondering, it takes a lot of guts to be able to go out and just do something, build something, and be a maker at the end of the day. But you mentioned a word that, is really valuable to me, which is mentor and having people around you. I mean, what was the process for you? Like, what did that look like to find a good mentor that supported you, that believed in you?
Finding somebody and really watching somebody and picking that mentor, I think are two key things because there's a lot of people out there that have say they've done some great things and they look great on paper, but until you see somebody in action and you see them live, it's a huge difference. So the first mentor to me, his name's Greg Stokes, and he's the guy who hired me at West Tech Security, was the security company. Number one, he was a godly man. He was a family man. He was from Alabama. He loved basketball. So we had those two things in common. But this was a guy that I quickly learned that if you treat people right and you take care of people and you don't focus on yourself, but you focus on helping others, you always get taken care of. And, I came up with a mantra is don't chase success or don't chase money, because people who chase money, that's all they do their entire life. So don't chase money, chase success, and the money always follows. And that's the principle that I learned from Greg. And if you take care of people, they will always take care of you. And so when you are looking for a mentor, you want to look for somebody that, is grounded. And, everybody has their different beliefs. For me, it's someone who, is a believer and has family values and just knows that, look, if you do the right thing, even when people aren't looking, that is how people start to respect you. And somebody that's willing to get out there and grind with you is a huge thing for me. And it's one of the things that I've kind of tried to show other people. It doesn't matter, John Maxwell, position is not about title. It's about influence. And I want to be able to influence other people by the work that I can help them do. And the best way to do it is to get out there alongside with them. And the industries that we've been in, Justin, it's been out there in the field, whether it's knocking on doors or going on appointments with them. It's showing them that what you're saying is not just what you're saying, but it's what you're teaching and what they should be doing. Because a lot of people will talk the talk, but they can't walk the walk. And as a leader, you've got to be able to do all those things. You don't have to be the greatest salesperson, but you've got to be able to do the things that you're asking your team to do. Because if you don't get the respect that you're going to need to grow your team and help people get to where they want to be.
And, I was actually listening to something last night about, a good leader is someone that's going to be in a foxhole with you because growing in life, professionally, personal, it's never easy. It's always an uphill battle, and you're always pushing the 1,000,000-pound boulder uphill every single day. But when you have somebody that's going to be side by side with you in that foxhole with you, going through the trials and tribulations with you, not only because they feel like they have to, but because they want to be there, because they put you and how much they care about you as an individual over the profit, people over profit, something I, firmly believe in. It makes that struggle so much more valuable because you can come out on the other side of it and not only say that you learned something from the experience, but you have someone else that is right there with you, that helps you, that guided you through that process, or just struggled with you. Sometimes a mentor is a peer that was right there with you alongside, right?
Hey, people got to see you struggle too. And I think there's one key word with mentorship that's super important, and that's accountability. If you don't have somebody to hold you accountable, you're never going to hit the goals that you want to achieve, right? And sometimes people, they don't like that word accountability because that means that you got to do what you say. And you've got somebody that's checking up on you. You want that. Don't run away from accountability. Find that person that is going to hold you accountable. I had a friend that, he's been struggling with alcoholism, and he reached out to me the other day and he told me, Ben, I'm an alcoholic. I need some help. And, I guided him that, look, you got to do a whole lot more than just me holding you accountable. You got to get some help. But man, when you reach out to somebody that can hold you accountable, if you're in that rut and if you're struggling with something, let them hold you accountable, but you got to be accountable as well. That is super, super important to become a great leader, is being held accountable. And then you can show people how you can hold them accountable. And that's how everybody gets the goals. And those are tough conversations. So your mentor is not always just like your best buddy and you guys are having beers and having fun and all that. It's somebody that's going to challenge you and hold you accountable and call you out if you're not doing the things that you're supposed to be doing. You want that. And as a parent, so I'm a father, I've got 5 awesome kids. Hold my kids accountable. And I want them to take that accountability into their adult life and appreciate those things. They don't like some of the stuff now, but they will. And you and I both experience the same thing with our parents. And so accountability is a huge thing with mentorship, that if you're not getting it, you got to push your mentor or find a mentor that is going to hold you accountable in a professional way, right? I mean, you don't want somebody beating you up all the time. That's not what we're looking for. But just having goals, you tell them where you want to be and where and how you want to get there, and give them permission to hold you accountable. And that really is a huge way to have success.
Absolutely. And, I think that's incredible that you had someone that's close to you that actually reached out to you. The word that comes to mind is trust. It takes a lot of trust that that person had in you to come to you and be truly 100% vulnerable and ask for that help. Can you talk a little bit about what that trust relationship looks like,
Man.
both as a mentor to somebody as well as when you were looking for a mentor early on?
Man, that's a tough word right there, because, I hold up five fingers, because if you have five people in your life that you can say, I trust them, you are lucky. And when I say I trust them, I've been battle tested with these people. Number one, trust God. That's number one. Number two is my wife. I trust my wife. That's number one and two. But to find three or four, maybe you're lucky and you've got more people than that. It has to be a situation where someone's going to come to you and they're like, man, I want to tell you something, but I really need it to stay between us. And you will be tempted to share that information with someone else. That information that comes to you may help you further your career if you told somebody. You can't. You just can't do it. This is where your true inner self is, and where you are going to learn to be a great leader is when people say, man, I trust Justin. I trust Ben because I told them something. I shared something and they didn't tell somebody. They didn't use it against me. They let me get it off my chest, and then they gave me advice on how to deal with it. And then where it really happens, Justin, is when you tell them something back. And now you've got that two-way trust. They gave you something, you gave them something, and neither one of you took advantage of each other. Those are the people that you want to stay connected with your entire life. And I'm blessed to have several people in my life that I can say that I trust and been battle tested. You're one of them, my man. Like, we've had some conversations too, and it's really, really hard to find people, and you're going to get burned. And that's just, not everybody's going to be able to do what they say. That's part of life. That's part of leading. You're going to go through some of those folks. You're going to learn some lessons, but just because you got burned once, don't give up on trusting people. We both follow John Maxwell. Everybody he meets is a 10. You're a 10. First time I meet you, you are a 10 until you're not. And you want people that are 10s in your life. And everybody struggles. Everybody goes through stuff, anxiety and depression and maybe some addiction or something. Like, everybody struggles with stuff financially, family. Have somebody that you can talk to really tell them how you're feeling and how you're thinking. And, it can be a therapist. That's totally cool too. But have that trusted person that you can reach out to. And when you do that, man, people will follow you to the end, and they will trust you with everything. And I've been blessed to be able to have that in my life. And I've always tried to do that everywhere I go.
You brought something up about, the trust comes when not only they trust you with something, but when you get the opportunity to share and trust them with something. The reciprocal information that, sometimes it's something very heavy and sometimes a little bit lighter, but regardless, it's the information that you're relying on them to keep private, or it's the story that really doesn't need to go further than just the two people that were in the room. But being able to build that relationship is vital. And you're right. I don't think that it's very easy to find those genuine people, especially if you're not looking, right?
Yeah.
And
100%.
And
They'll
I
come
think
to you.
that, I think you attract what you put out there, right? You're the average of five people that you spend the most time with. And, when you're thinking about that starting roster, where were some of the places that you found to find your closest connections that you've been blessed with?
Well, obviously I was an athlete growing up. So in team sports, you're looking for your teammates. You want to have, guys on your team that you can trust, because you can't win championships unless you really truly trust the guys that you're playing with. And then it shifts into the business world. So it always starts with the people that you're working with. And sometimes the trust is people above you. And then sometimes there's trust with people, below you who potentially follow you, like taking that trust down instead of up. And I find that very, very powerful when you are in a leadership position and you can reach out to other people that maybe don't even work for you in your department, but they're within the company, and you build a relationship with them. And then that trust starts to blossom in that direction. So I would just tell you that just watch people. Watch how people react. Watch how people respond. When you start at a new company, everything's going to be new. Don't just jump into, a trust relationship immediately. Watch how people do and what they say. And then you'll start to see, like, man, that's somebody that's captive. They can really light up a room. They know how to have a conversation. I saw a difficult situation. I watched how they handled it. I watched how they talked to that person. That's somebody that I want to get to meet, know, like, and trust. And then as you're building your business, you're going outside of your company and you're trying to find those connection with other business leaders, and you can watch and follow their business. But it's always a watching game in the beginning to find out who that person is. And sometimes once you do get one-on-one with them and you meet them and get to spend some time, they turn out to be somebody maybe different than what you saw. So it's about watching people. It's about taking your time, finding the right mentor. And then once you have that mentor, man, give it everything that you got to help each other to get to the next level. And that's what makes it fun. People don't always stay at the same company for their whole career. Rarely happens anymore, especially the younger generation right now. Just because you have a mentor at the company that you're at, when you leave, that mentorship doesn't have to end. But it takes work to keep that mentorship because you both are doing different things now. You're not connected. You may not see each other, but picking up that phone and making that call or that text, that's important to keep those, because when you have somebody that you trust, you're going to need them again, and they're probably going to need you again.
Absolutely. And I'm in that younger generation of, the fact of the matter is we're all trying to find that company that makes them feel whole and feel supported. So, and I remember when I was exiting the company that we had in Mutual Connection, you and I sat down and we talked about, like, what is this going to look like? Because I don't want to lose this connection. So the intentionality with that relationship changes substantially. There's the in-work mentorship relationship, but then I think it blossoms into something so much greater after the fact. So thank you for sharing that. That's incredible. Now, I'm sure, those who are listening, you have successfully built businesses from the ground up, scaled multi-million-dollar businesses, but I'm sure it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows along the way. Can you tell the audience a little bit about maybe a struggle, a failure, maybe the biggest obstacle that you had to overcome?
There's been a lot of them. There's been a lot of them. Everybody talks about the wins, but they rarely talk about the losses. And I certainly have had some losses over, my career. I would tell you that probably the biggest loss that I've had is I had a company called Power Home Technologies that my best friend and I started in 2004. And we started in an apartment in Glen Allen, Virginia. I had to leave my family because I had a non-compete. I had to move to Virginia. I lived in Raleigh, North Carolina. He had to do the same thing. And we started that in an apartment. And there was a lot of struggles in the beginning, but we stuck with it, and things started to blossom and things started to build. And we took that company from startup of $0 to over $35 million in annual sales in a year. We sold the business in 2014. And the mistake and lesson that I learned is we brought on a business partner there the very last year. And this business partner had a call center, and we were outside sales. We were door knocking, lead generation, that sort of thing. We didn't do any type of telemarketing or any of that. And this person had just lost their business, went out of business, and had this whole team of telemarketers. And I thought, man, we could really grow our business exponentially. We bring this guy on. There was some, some character issues there that I knew about. We knew of each other. But I took the road of instant gratification, if you will, accelerated growth to bring somebody on that I shouldn't have. And that was a mistake that I'm going to own for a very long time. Now our business exponentially grew and we accomplished some things that we never had accomplished before, but there was a whole lot of pain that came with that. Telemarketing is a very difficult thing to navigate. I didn't know anything about it. I was trusting that person, lawsuits, DNC stuff, just a lot of things that got thrown at us I had never dealt with before, which I learned from. But if I would have just stayed the course of what we had done for the previous 10 years and continued to go instead of trying to get that immediate huge win with not a lot of trust in the person that I brought on as a partner, that was a learning lesson. We ended up having to sell the business basically because of that partner. And it was a successful exit. I mean, made money. It was good. But I look back and I'm like, I wish I still owned that company. I wish that I still had that company. And there were so many good people that I had built so many relationships with that it was very, very hard to walk away from. And so I learned a valuable lesson that what got you there was hard work and time. What's going to get you further is going to be hard work and time. There is no shortcut. There's no elevator to success. You have to continue to take the stairs. And before you ever bring on another partner, you really got to think about all of the things that can happen with that. And that was the biggest lesson for me that I learned is I was trying to chase something. I went against my own mantra of don't chase the money, chase success. I chased the money with that one and it bit me in the end. So, lesson learned on that one.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to just sticking to your guns. Like, find your
Mhm.
moral compass, your true north, and follow it. Because every once in a while, the joke goes that God has a sense of humor because he's going to make sure you learn the lesson that he wants you to learn at that given time. And
Yeah.
on the bright side, right, there was successes in that story. There were wins in that, but no win ever comes unscathed. There's always some growing pains along the way. Thank you for saying that. That's
Yeah.
I'm sure very uh, resounding for many people. Now, you've been a sales leader you said 97 you got in the industry, is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah, my
Yeah.
first management job was 1998. So I got promoted to a manager within 6 months at 21 years old.
So, I mean, we're going on multiple decades of leadership success at this
You
point.
can see that gray.
It's coming in nicely, I'm sure. Now, with that being said, I mean, one would probably think, oh, well, you're probably at the pinnacle of your leadership, but I know that's not the case for you. What are some things that you do as a leader to continue sharpening your sword when it comes to leadership, even nowadays?
I'm always challenging myself. You think about everything's a sports analogy to me because, I've always been an athlete. I love to compete. I just started playing pickleball. Like that game is awesome. So I think I'm 5 or 6 days in. I just can't get enough of it. But I love to compete. So as a leader, I'm always challenging myself is how can I push myself? Because if I can push myself farther, then the people that I'm going to lead are going to go farther as well. And you don't know how far you can go until you've broken another record and you've raised the bar. I mean, we all want to be perfect, but perfection is never going to be achieved, right? Because you just keep raising the bar. You can chase it all you want, but the chase is what gets you to the highest level. And so that's what I always do, Justin, is just continue to try to push myself. And again, I'm at a point in my life where I'm put myself in a very, very uncomfortable position currently to do something that I've quite honestly have never done before in my life. And this experience of starting this new business at this point in my life is something that is sharpening my skills of leadership because I'm very uncomfortable. And when you're uncomfortable, you are growing. And when you're growing, that gives you new things to teach and train other people that come into your organization.
There's a saying that I like, which is diamonds are only formed under pressure. And I think there's a diamond inside all of us, but it's going to take some uncomfortability and it's going to take putting ourselves into situations we've never experienced before in order to grow to what our potential really can be and should be. And I think one of the biggest miss points is people don't always see their own potential, but oftentimes others see it in them. So we as leaders have to be able to identify that potential in someone and help them bring it out for themselves and what that can do as an individual. But I personally would love to hear a little bit about what this new venture is that you are doing. Multifaceted entrepreneur. What's on the books now?
Yeah, I'll tell you that before I get into that, you just brought something up I wanted to share is bringing out the potential in people. There's a lot of people out there that they are a diamond. They just don't know it. And until they get with an organization or specifically a leader that recognizes who they are and what they can do and pushes them, but most importantly, praises them. I mean, everybody loves a pat on the back. And there's so many organizations where people will go out there and they'll do great things. And it's like, well, they got paid. They got paid for that. And that's the thanks they get. Recognition, recognition, recognition. It is huge. And for all of you out there, I don't care if you're a small size business or big size business, you got to recognize your folks because if they don't get it from you, they're going to get it from somebody else. And people love that. Make sure. And when you recognize people, they get elevated to a whole nother level. I had a rep who was working for a competitor. I was able to recruit her over and she was kind of timid because she knew that we had a lot of superstars at our company. And she said, Ben, this was in the home security business. She said, I'm just going to go out there and just write 10 a month and I'm not going to be a superstar. And her name was Cindy. I said, Cindy, you are a diamond. I know who you are. I know what you're capable of. You just haven't gotten an environment where you can show everybody what you can do. I promise you, you'll be selling 25 deals a month and be one of our top sales reps. And you know what? She became a Hall of Famer at Power Home Technologies and she sold 25 deals and went on the trips and all of that because she got in an environment where success was recognized and it was rewarded. And the more you did, the more you got recognized. And so when you can put that into your culture and environment, man, it lights things up, but it's got to be celebrated all across the board. Invest some money. Put some money into some swag, to some trips, to some contests, not just a check. Because when somebody wins a bonus and it's money, they spend it and they don't even remember what they spent it on. But if they got a hat or they got a jacket or they earned a trip or they went on dinner with you and they got to bring their spouse and significant other, it makes a big difference. I want to make sure I hit on that. But as far as what I'm doing, for everybody that's listening, so I turned 49 this year. I got 5 kids. I live in Raleigh, North Carolina. Worked for a great company, executive role, very big earnings. And I decided that I wanted to get back into entrepreneurship. I miss the days of owning and operating my own company like I had at Power Home Technologies. And I struggled with it. Like every day I'm in this company and I'm leading these people. And, I'm excited to be in the company because there was a lot of great people. But man, it just was not driving me deep down in my heart because I knew that I wanted to do something different. I kept fighting that battle. And finally, I had a conversation with my wife and I said, look, honey, I want to do something. I want to start another business. And, we got two girls in college, another son, 17, and then 2 little ones that are 12 and 11. Kids are expensive. At this point in my life, there's not many people that are going and starting a brand new business where, you got a guaranteed salary and income at a high level. You walk away from that and you're starting from scratch. But I doubled down on that. I'm not just starting from scratch. I moved from Raleigh to Nashville, Tennessee, because Nashville, Tennessee is the only place that I could open up this brand of Westinghouse. I'm in the water purification business. And I have an installer here in Nashville and I had to get my wife on board with that. Had to get my kids on board with that. They're my biggest cheerleaders, my biggest support. But I'm in a city in an Airbnb here for the next year, away from my family, starting a brand new business, knocking on doors, selling water purification. And let me tell you, Justin, I have been tested 3 weeks in and, God's blessed me. We got 8 customers already. We've hit our goals that we've set. Things are going well. But man, it is tough to wake up every day, know that you have a family to support, not only emotionally, but financially. And every day you've got to go find that job. There's no residual income. Yeah, I have savings and all of that stuff. And, I've got money put away, but that's my retirement money. I need to make money to live on today. But man, when you go out there and you win, it feels so good because you're winning for yourself and this company that you are trying to build, where I can envision all of these reps that I want to change their lives and give them a place to make more money and have fun and be part of a team that's growing. And when you provide water filtration for customers, it does something. It gives them, better health. It takes care of their appliances. But it is, all of my buddies think I'm crazy and they can't believe I'm doing it. But man, I just pray every single day. I write down my goals every single day. At the end of the day, I come back to my goals and did I get a W or did I get an L? And there's been days where I've gotten losses and there's been days that I've got wins. I celebrate the win. I ask myself, how can I improve on the losses? And just keep challenging myself every single day. So for all of you listening, keep me in your prayers, your thoughts. I'm pushing on. Tennessee Water Company is here to stay. We're in Nashville, Tennessee, and then I plan on coming back to North Carolina, and I'll open up in Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina here, hopefully within the next year or so. Excited, but it's the biggest risk I've ever taken in my life. But don't talk about it, be about it, baby.
And I can see how eccentric you are about it. I can see how excited you are. And it's a fire that I love to see, both in the people I love and support, but also the people that are watching this. I'm sure they can see it and see that it's radiating from you as well. So if someone does want to follow along and might have some questions, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you if they need to?
Yeah, reach out to me. I'm on LinkedIn. So, Ben Brookhart on LinkedIn. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram. Tennessee Water Company is the name of the business. So, hit me up on social media and would be more than happy to have a conversation with you if you're struggling with something and I can help you with something. Would love to talk to you. And, for those folks that are out there and you're in a job, okay? And job to me is just over broke. You want to be in a career, and that career could be a short-term career. It could be you're just starting out and you've got a 1 to 2 year picture of where you're at, and that's okay. Just love what you're doing. Make sure you love what you're doing. And it's not going to be sunshine and rainbows every single day. There's going to be tough times. There's going to be some tough bosses. There's going to be some tough people. Not everybody is going to be the person you want them to be, but find out how you can contribute. What can you do to not only help yourself and your family, but those around you?